there was a couple of things that I learned about the way Microsoft builds software since I went to my first reproducible builds summit. And for perfectly rational reasons to best serve and secure our customers, I was barely home from the reproducible build summit, and somebody was saying, well, you realize once we build, what does it mean to build the binaries for Windows? There's a question for you. When you realize that as a user installing it on your laptop or PC, you're already in this huge complex binary installation experience of here's the core, but here's these 5 things that have to work together, and then I'm going to click on these things. And then there's the whole driver background of, as you plug in a device, different things happen. But there's also a period where in a place in that build cycle where apparently historically we would crack open the binaries we had built and scribble on them.
Hmm.
For a very particular security reason that we had learned painfully over the previous, couple of decades of shipping Windows. I'm not sure what that means to a reproducible build.
Yeah.
Not sure what it means to a modern SBOM for that matter. The idea that, yeah, here's the SBOM up to this point where we cracked open the binary and wrote on it kind of thing. And it's like, having lived inside of Microsoft with its focus on keeping customers happy and the extreme attack surface we represent because of how successful we've been as a producer of software, there is like we've got very good at certain very large scale engineering problems in the software space that you don't hear of other companies. Like other companies go, why would you do that? And it's like, well, because we learned this very painful way that, that we had to do it this way to ensure that the software was secure, watermarked, stamped in a particular way, protected, and it's so, this idea that we can come up with one tool set for everybody, I think is not so
Yeah.
sure. There was even at last Monday when we were all at the conference, uh, Kate Stewart, who sits at the heart of a lot of the SBOM discussions, gave a brilliant state of the SBOM
SBOMs.
presentation. And it was I don't think it was longer than 15 minutes, but it was this perfect presentation that said, here's how we got to where we are today, and all of the rich complexity of what it means to be building an SBOM, what kind of SBOM being used for what, and how would you build it and or query it to learn. It was an amazing summary of the state where we are, and pointers off to all of the things you would have to read to even begin to understand it as well as she does. And then there's but already we saw later in the week a keynote where, a respected person in our industry stood up and said, and now we're going to apply it to hardware, supply chains. And it was like, there's a certain amount of, I am thinking you don't fully understand the problem and you haven't solved it for software yet. And the idea that you're just going to trivially extend this format to cover all of these other situations, I'm pretty sure you want to pause for a bit, kind of. So we live in a complex world.
Yeah.
That we do. And we also have a podcast episode out with Ava Black where we talk about the security aspects of open source and how non-trivial and non-solved the challenges are.
Yeah, and Ava's fantastic because they are one of those engineers that can start talking to you about, okay, the electrons are hitting the board. Now here's all of the things that will start to happen through all of the levels. And the joy of having worked with them is they can continue up that stack into, beyond the hardware. Now here's the social levels of regulatory things that you need to consider as well.
Yep.
And it's just that ability to be able to talk about how all of the layers in the discussion relate. I hope Ava's podcast covers some of that richness.
We went into some of the details, but there's only so much you can cover in
Right.
such
Yep.
short amount of time that we have on these recordings.
Wow, that's what I thought was so fascinating about Kate's presentation is it was like 15 minutes, and you came
Yeah.
out of it realizing there's a lot here. There's a lot
A lot of
beyond
work
what I
to
thought
do.
I understood. All the pointers are here, and still she managed to lay out that kind of the map of the territory in 15 minutes for you. It's like compare that to how long I've been rambling. It's like I wish I could speak that tightly, or I could figure out how to focus it down that cleanly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That presentation in particular was a really good explanation as to why people getting software on the runtime and the deployment side aren't really seeing what's being reported when you try to do the SBOM at the build or the intake side.
Right.
Because there are too many things that are happening in between. Just the recognition that there need to be different SBOMs that are correlated was, for me, the power of that talk.
Right, exactly. Well, and there was even the protobomb work that was released or announced last week.
Yep.
I think the thing that's interesting there is there was a bit of a misunderstanding, I think, in the way it was presented in kind of the press releases and by the journalists copying the press releases. Protobomb is a library of tools for basically a translation library. So you can take any of the existing formats, the popular ones,
Yep.
and slurp that SBOM in that format into a generalized form that can then be manipulated in very powerful ways as a developer, and then translated back out cleanly with fidelity into any of the other formats. And so I think it's Protobomb is a really powerful library that folks can start to go and use. But it's a translation library. It's not actually a producer of SBOMs kind of thing. And so it's a tool that you could probably use that way. But I think, yeah, we're just at the front end of starting to figure this out. And unfortunately, fortunately, we have the accelerant of government level. In the EU, we've got the Cyber Resiliency Act breathing down its neck. Here, we've got the executive order from the president's office a couple of years ago. These are forcing discussions almost too quickly as people try for a land grab. But it's still, it's a really interesting challenge right now.